So how many of you stayed up all night working on this presentation? By show of hands. I stayed up multiple nights on this presentation. Usually I would get 6 hours or more of sleep, or less in this case. I had a feeling I forgot something as soon as I woke up and immediately went to my email to see what I needed to do, and I figured it out. But that is also a part of sleep deprivation. So what I want to talk to you about today is different things that you didn't know was affected just by not getting enough sleep. So sleep deprivation can cause severe issues to our mind, body, and our mood. It shortens our attention span. So whenever you get up and you rush through the day trying to get through studying or a test or this presentation, you may have forgotten parts of it that you probably studied for the prior night trying to cram everything in. And because of that, after about 16 hours of us being awake, the ability to sustain our alertness begins to decline dramatically. There's tests designed on our reaction time as far as if someone was awake for 24 hours, they would have the same mentality as someone who is intoxicated. And that's why a lot of people who aren't alert get in accidents, because they're sleep deprived. Another one that we want to talk about is our attention span. The reason why we have a lot of kids with ADHD that have problems with that, such as my son, he has issues with sleep. And a lot of times he'll be off in La La Land and not paying attention if he's not medicated. So thankfully he's medicated. Another one that affects myself and a lot of other people is increased appetite and weight gain. And if you didn't really realize it, did you know that whenever you're maybe taking people out to go to a movie and you get out at 9:30 and you go home and you're like, man, I'm hungry. It's because you're sleep deprived and you're hungry and you're gonna go after the first thing that shows up, junk food. And that's why there's all kinds of different studies, such as in this sleep disorder source book on the Omnograph, Dr. Aaron Holland and Eve Van Cotter of the University of Chicago. It affects our body's activation of the endocannabinoid ECB system, also found in marijuana. It affects, it's a key player in our brain's regulation of appetite and energy levels. It also sparks our desire for tasty food, so it gives us less of a resistance, per se. Another one that we have is heart disease. I found it very interesting that heart disease is found in a lot of people who have sleep disorders, like sleep apnea. People experience reduced sleep 6 hours or less are at risk for heart disease, stroke, blood pressure issues, and more often die from heart attacks than people that who sleep longer, as opposed to someone who sleeps longer than 7 to 8 hours a night. The risk of heart attacks go up by 5% in the 3 weeks after we lose an hour of sleep during daylight savings time. But it doesn't happen whenever we do the fall back in the fall or autumn. This is a no-brainer. If you lose sleep, you're kind of moody and irritable. Number one thing that my son says is, don't wake the bear. And I have a giant bear picture in front of my bed. And he's the baby bear because he's just like me. One single night of inadequate sleep can make you irritable and moody, which can cause issues with your significant other, your work colleagues, your family, your teachers. You may overreact to things that normally wouldn't make you upset. And then there's also depression. They've actually found that 90% of patients suffering from acute depressive disorder reported changes in their sleep. They also do the opposite effect where they do a study with sleep helping depression, so it's kind of counteracting. If there's consistent insomnia, there's increased risk of a relapse with a depressive episode, which I found that was kind of sad. So now that you know all this, how much sleep do we need? So they found that newborns need, from 0 to 3 months, need 14 to 17 hours per day. I want to be a newborn right now. There's infants 4 to 11 months, 12 to 15 hours. Toddlers 1 to 2 years, 11 to 14. Preschoolers 10 to 13 hours. School-age children 6 to 13, 9 to 11 hours. Teenagers 14 to 17, 8 to 10 hours, but we all know they need to be hibernating for quite a while. Adults our age, 18 to 64, 7 to 9 hours. Older adults, 65 or senior citizens, 7 to 8 hours. But also for pregnant women, they need a few more hours than most because obviously they have another human being in them, so they need sleep too. But an overview of what we've talked about with the mind, impairing your memory and shortening your attention span. The body, increased appetite, causing a little bit more pounds. Heart disease, which I definitely want to be sleeping so I don't have a heart attack since my family has that in their history. The mood, be crabby and irritable. And depression, which I thought was very interesting because I didn't know that depression was linked up with sleep deprivation. So now that you have that information, you can hopefully plan out your day a little bit better and get a few more hours of sleep in. That way you don't have these issues.